be here this afternoon with a very special edition of Crush Your Mountain Health. And I'll tell you why. I wanted to reach out to everyone with a very special guest that's going to address a very special subject. Our children are our future. And in this particular country, as well as other parts of the world, they are plagued with childhood obesity, and they're also plagued with low self-esteem in terms of the way we address that subject. I was not necessarily an obese child when I was a kid, but I know how parents can make you feel by just the way they address you. I know how adults, teachers, relatives, neighbors can make you feel by labeling you and brushing you off a certain way. Well, today we're going to address that in terms of our health, in terms of the health of our children in particular. Let me introduce to you Dr. Polack is a pediatrician in Union City, New Jersey, and is affiliated with multiple hospitals in the area, including Hackensack University Medical Center at Hackensack Meridian Health and CarePoint Health Bayonne Medical Center. She received her medical degree from Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School and has been in practice for more than 20 years. She treats children, infants, and adults. They are trained to meet the unique needs of children through all of their development stages as they grow and mature. Her quote is this: "I enjoy watching the progression from infancy to toddlerhood, childhood, and adolescence. I most enjoy the hugs that are spontaneously thrown at me when I least expect them. My style of patient care is respectful and inclusive. We often make decisions as a team. I hope to give my patients a sense of trust and security where they are comfortable coming to me with any issue, no matter how private." Recently, she became concerned with the obesity of children, but we're also going to learn an evolution in her perspective and approach to treating this dreaded situation, the situation that's a threat to not just our families, but also society as a whole. Let's talk to her directly. Dr. Noah Polack, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, please tell us about this change of approach, first of all, because obesity is affecting millions of Americans and millions of people worldwide, but especially children. The founder of Mind Valley, he actually went on a campaign because he's originally from Malaysia, and the children there are affected by the sugar industry, and they have become the most obese individuals, children in Asia as a whole, in the East. So please talk to us about your change of approach and tell us how we can incorporate that in terms of our thinking of health and our children.
So I would like to share my own experience regarding this. So I've been a pediatrician since 1996, and I've been treating children for all those years. Lately, about the past 10 years, there's been a big focus at the American Academy of Pediatrics to really address childhood obesity, as you know. So the way that we were taught to do that is to talk to parents at every well visit about their child's body weight, as well as height, and their body mass index, which is a ratio of both. And so I went about to do that. And I did that at every well visit. I would discuss the child's weight. If they were gaining too much weight per year, I would discuss it with the parent in front of the child. And recently I had to apologize to a young lady who's 12 years old, who apparently I had told her parent not to give her so much candy and to help her to lose weight about 3 or 4 years before. So this young lady incorporated that into her mindset and decided that she has to watch her weight and lose weight. And now at the age of 12, she's unhappy with her weight and she doesn't want to come see me. So I feel like that was a good wake-up call for how we providers, as well as parents and teachers, other professionals, address children who are struggling with their weight. Let us change the conversation from a weight conversation to a health conversation. So let's try to do what's called weight neutral messaging with our children so that we can avoid causing something just as dangerous as obesity, to be honest, which is low self-esteem and even eating disorders in some kids. So what I'm proposing, and I'm hoping that other providers can agree with me about, is that if we have a patient in front of us and we're concerned about their body weight, we should really address it, but only if we ask their permission. I should have asked her and her mother, do you want to discuss weight? And if they say no, then I'd say, please let me know if and when you're ready to discuss it. I also should have said that it would be great if you, young lady, would eat less sugar. So have your candy maybe once a week, but not every day, and eat more vegetables and move more. If I were to address it from the point of view of that you could be healthier if you don't eat as much sugar, and you could be healthier if you move more, then that would have avoided this situation. So lesson learned, moving forward, I will certainly address it differently, and I have been for the last few months. But I wanted to share my experience with you and your audience.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you did. So here's a good question I would ask. Is it possible that much of the eating disorders that have developed in men and women, but women in particular, started in adolescence due to perhaps some of the messaging that they have been receiving from peers, from doctors, from parents?
Most likely. I haven't seen a study to signify that. However, I would have to say that we all have voices, and those voices ring in our children's heads for the rest of their lives. So as a parent, I'm well aware of that. And as a daughter, right, I have my parents' voices in my head, even now in my 50s. But we have to make sure that our messaging is not harmful to the child. And if we do give a harmful message erroneously, we mean well, but sometimes we make mistakes. We must apologize, as I did to this young person. And I want to continue to offer the opportunity to other professionals who may have used words that were somewhat demeaning to kids, or that may have caused them to go in the wrong direction, to say, you know what, I've changed, I've evolved, I should not have said that, and forgive me.
Okay, well, two things. First of all, I have to say that you gave away a secret that you should not have given away, because we were going to say, wow, she's been in business, she's been practicing for 20 years. She must have started when she was about 7. Okay, and second of all, the concept of extending dignity to our children is almost a foreign concept to society as a whole. If you're, I don't know if you're like me or we had similar backgrounds, because I have a West Indian upbringing and as well as a Southern American upbringing. In either case, it was, spare the rod and spoil the child. And so, a child having dignity, what type of sense does that make? A child don't get dignity, you know what I'm saying? And what does that do to our children when they are already going to school and have to deal with deal with bullies and things like that, the peer pressure, et cetera. So understanding that is so vital, and I certainly do hope that that other individuals take that to heart in the medical community. Now, you had another experience, and it's dear to my heart, because I remember when I was a kid, I started exercising and working out when I was 13 years old. And, it was real important to me. And hearing my phys ed teacher may say certain things really kind of either motivated me or deflated. Case in point, I started doing upside down push-ups. And my gym teacher at the time said, Mr. Gaskins keeps us up, he's going to look like the Incredible Hulk. I really wanted that. I was waiting to see if I could turn green. But on the other hand, there are many times when what we say, particularly as individuals of authority, as if we're teachers, mentors, parents, can have a negative effect. Tell us a little bit about your experience with a young male.
So a different experience I had recently where there's a young man who came to see me. I hadn't seen him myself for a few years because his family had moved away. And when I saw him, he had lost about 13 pounds in 1 month. And I was having a discussion with him about how and why he chose to lose that weight. And he's a 5'8", 17-year-old boy. And he lost all that weight by restricting his calories to 1,200 calories a day because someone at the gym told him, if you lose all the fat on your body, then you can start to build muscle from scratch. So that really broke my heart because this young man, who looked somewhat thin, wanted to be 120 pounds. And that would have been really not okay for a 5'8" male who wants to build muscle, right?
Well, the fact of the matter is that when you are losing weight, eventually what happens is that the body starts to feed off of the muscle, so you're losing the muscle as well. It's almost an early advance of sarcopenia, if you will.
Right.
So how did we address that, and how were we able to turn that around in his thinking?
It's in process, let's say. I had a conversation with him and with his parents, and I was honest about the fact that this is such a terrible amount. It's such a low amount of calories. It's such restrictive eating that it is harmful to his body, and that I do think that he has some disordered eating patterns. And I immediately referred him for help, psychotherapy, because this is much more of an emotional issue than it is a physical issue, and it must be addressed seriously. So if we as parents, providers, or teachers see sudden weight loss in someone who's really restricting and over-exercising, we have to address it, say, oh my gosh, this is a problem that can actually lead to death. So take it seriously, right? Take it really seriously. I sent him for help. Let's put it that way.
That's good. And I certainly hope that he progresses on to a healthy weight and a healthy build and reaches that point. I know how challenging that can be. Let me sort of hone in on the concept, though, of the childhood obesity, because we can't ignore the fact that it's gotten to be out of control. Weight loss as a whole is a problem now for a lot of individuals. Type 2 diabetes now, it used to be called adult diabetes, and then there was childhood diabetes. Now it's just called type 2 because you can have it at the age of 5. So can you help us to understand what might be the 3 factors involved that has wrought this particular situation?
So in my experience, it is, poor nutritional habits, lack of movement, and a bad mindset about your body. So it's all 3, in my opinion. Sugar is the biggest culprit, right? And refined carbohydrates in terms of poor nutrition. So when we as professionals or parents address our children, instead of saying this is a good food or a bad food, we can say this is a food that you can eat for pleasure, and this one is more nutritious. Let's eat that to give your body the fuel it needs. And so therefore, the amount of food that you eat for pleasure should not be more than the amount of food that you eat for nutrition. If you have a healthy balance of 80% nutritious, healthy food and only 20% or less, food for pleasure, that is a more healthy balance. Number 1. Number 2, movement is super important in all age groups. It doesn't have to be called exercise because some kids hate the idea of exercise, but we can say move. We can say, let's dance, let's play with the hula hoop, let's jump rope, let's go for a walk, let's ride our bike. Whatever it is to get your kid moving an hour a day would be super important. And then the mindset, which is the part I'm most passionate about, which is that no matter what shape your body is, you are worthy. Your weight does not measure your worth in any way, and we should not address it as that. And I feel like that is where our society has been faltering lately.
Well, I have to agree on the other hand, here's part of the challenge. There seems to be this dichotomy in terms of thought, whereby on the one hand, there's this picture of slimness and this is the model person, how you should be. But now there is this other movement going to the other extreme where a person can be obese and it's okay. Love your body. Let's not use these certain words. Don't use the F word. And the F word is not the F word that we knew when we were kids. The F word that they're talking about is fat. There's this thing called fat shaming. We're looking at, I go to Walmart at times and I see that they have models now who are obviously physically gifted, let's just say, or let's just say physically over gifted, okay? And so, but the fact of the matter is internally, it's affecting their health and ultimate health outcome. You see, so I'm wondering, how do we walk the fine line and help individuals come to a balance between the two?
I'm struggling with that as well. But here's my point of view, and I am sure it will evolve more as more and more patients come and tell me how they feel. It is possible to have a body weight that is thin and in the right body mass index, but not be healthy. And it's also possible to have someone who has a few extra pounds, but they are exercising and they are eating healthy foods. So I feel like as a society, if we can use language that involves health, that would be the walking that fine line. So if a person who looks larger than others is able to eat vegetables, fruits, and healthy proteins, and they move all the time, they move well, they're not in pain when they move, then we can address it in such a way that if you feel great, keep on going. We don't have to force them to lose weight to feel good about themselves. However, if it's an individual who has a few pounds to lose, who's unhappy with the way they feel when they walk, they can't go up the stairs without huffing and puffing. If their knees hurt, that's the individual you want to help to get healthier, not just from a weight perspective, but just from an overall perspective of health. So wellness is not equal to weight, right? That's what we really need to focus on, in my opinion. And I know other people disagree with my opinion, but as parents, as health professionals, and other professionals that take care of children, if we address health instead of weight, we've done our part for their mindset and for their self-esteem.
I can tell you, I understand this and I agree with you, because when we help our children to think in terms of taking care of themselves, taking care of their physical health, their mental health, their spiritual health, spirituality, when we help them become well-rounded that way, then indeed they can grow and be healthy as much as possible in the best way possible without thinking, I'm fat, I'm disgusting, I'm ugly.
Exactly.
That's part of the challenge, and the irony is in what plays out in the playground and the school hallways actually translates up into the corporate world, believe it or not.
It does.
And so, and do we, so the question, do we ever grow up? Because when you think about that, there's the beautiful people and the cool people who were in school, and then they won't go on oftentimes to be the beautiful people and the cool people in the business world, as it were. And then you have those who don't fit the mold, don't fit the build, and they are emotionally shut out. They are mentally shut out, and they internally crush themselves and punish themselves. And sometimes, for the sake of that comfort, they turn to the food, and it goes into unhealthy eating. You see, so being able to address it, I fully agree. That's one of the things I try to work with a lot of my clients on, because they come to me in terms of dropping the weight for the sake of type 2 diabetes. And the things that we really need to understand is, what is the real reason behind your desire to lose weight?
That's right. Do you want to feel good, or do you just want to look good, right? Because that's a whole different way of doing it. And it takes a long time. If you drop all that weight immediately, it's unlikely you'll be able to keep that restriction up long term. And that is a terrible cycle that really affects your health. So again, my message is actually about messaging, Mr. Gaskins, right? So my message used to be mostly about childhood obesity, but now it's really about messaging around the whole problem with health versus weight. A weight neutral message is a more healthy message, talking to our kids about their self-worth not being equal to their weight. That scale should not ruin their day, right? If they're playing soccer for an hour and they feel great, I don't care what weight you are, right? You're okay, man, right?
That's true. So here's another question. How crucial is the parent's actual physical involvement in the child's movement and activity towards their health?
I would say it is important, very important, but it is not undoable without that. So if mom or dad have a physical disability that they truly can't help their child to be more physically active, then they can encourage them with words. But if they're physically able and they can participate, of course, it's much better. I don't want to say that if a parent is, God forbid, in a wheelchair or something, that they cannot help their child be healthy. But yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can encourage your child to move every day for at least an hour. So parents are important in every way possible, but there are different ways to help your child.
Well, let's go through a couple of scenarios, all right?
Gotcha.
Parents, two parents, or let's just say one parent, because we have a lot of single parent households,
Yep.
sometimes by chance, there's other times by choice. And in either situation, long day at work, they come home, but they know the child needs to have some sort of activity and interactivity. What can they do?
So first of all, they don't need to have a whole hour to spend with their child. 15 minutes of playing with your child, active play, will do the trick. Even if you're exhausted, can you manage just 15 minutes? Maximum 30 minutes. So let's say 15 minutes. If you are able to go out in the yard and throw the ball around, if you can go for a walk, wonderful. If you can't do that, then for Pete's sake, turn on some music and dance in the kitchen as you cook dinner.
Now you're speaking my language. You see? Because I love to have dinner dance parties, you see. So with my girls, my son's kids, what I love to do is I love to get the music going, and we get in there, we start chopping our food, and I've got the other one, she loves to make beef stew, and we put these foods together, but most importantly, we have a great time. And afterwards, I can get them out and start jumping around a little bit just to get them moving or to keep them moving. So yeah, what I have learned is that any little thing can really help. And kids, the kid that, it's always time to go to bed, they're too tired now.
Yes.
Because they're bouncing off the walls, right? But that's when we can also utilize that energy and then bring them down so that they can get to some sleep.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge, especially when we had one of those hectic days. But can we take the time to say, to instead of saying, all right, Johnny, it's time to go to bed now, you're bouncing off the walls. Maybe it's time to say, hey, that's good. Now that you're doing that, you're great. Let's sit for a second, okay? Maybe get them some exercise, but then let's sit for a second. Let's breathe for a second. Have you talked about breath exercise and things that with your patients?
I do, and I get eye rolls all the time, but I do anyway. A lot of them are actually doing it at school now, to be honest, around my area. So they do some breathing exercises. Some kids even meditate at school, believe it or not. And yoga is now one of the after-school activities in some of the schools. So yes, I do talk about it, and I think it's great to help your kid wind down. Absolutely.
That is so important, that even when it comes to, the idea of breath, it goes right back into the sacred text. The first 5 books of the Bible, it talks about God breathing into man the breath of life. When it talks about every living thing in which breath exists. And even when it comes to getting an inspiration, when they talk about divine inspiration, they're talking about God breathing it into an individual. So the idea of breath is so vital, and taking the time to teach our children how to use their own breathing in and breathing out. And if they get centered, well, you tell us, what have you found that does for a child?
So I have found a couple of things helps to calm children down. Walking in nature is actually huge, and it was found to even help with attention issues in some children. So a walk in nature is calming. Taking slow, deep breaths, whether your eyes are open or closed. I love doing it with my eyes closed. It does bring down the child's heart rate. They start to think more clearly, adults and children. So it decreases your heart rate, your blood pressure, it decreases your distractibility. So even 5 or 10 minutes in between classes to take deep breaths when you are going into a hard exam or something is very helpful.
Wow, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, Doctor, your information, the passion that you bring to taking care of children as a pediatrician, and your pivot in terms of bringing the message to a child's esteem for the sake of their health, both mental and physical, is so very, very well appreciated. I ask one question in closing to all of my guests, and I really am so thankful and grateful that we took this time, this special moment, to present to others out there. But Dr. Noah Polack, what does it mean to you to crush your mountain?
Crushing my mountain, Mr. Gaskins, would be my message being out there everywhere, so that I would love to be on a whole ton of stages saying to other physicians and providers and teachers that our messaging must change to weight neutral messaging, and that we can help our children by talking about health, movement, and nutrition instead of their weight. And let's change this whole mindset in our society. So crushing my mountain is being on a stage with 10,000 people listening, and we changing the whole mindset of our country.
Sounds like we've got a TED Talk in the works.
Hopefully, that's the plan.
Excellent, excellent. We are going to be so thrilled to see you up there. I'd love to be sitting up front in that audience just to watch you and to learn from you. And listen, friends, keep in mind the old saying everyone has heard is that children are our future. That's very true. So how are you shaping the future of your child? What messages are you telling your children? Keep in mind that the words that you put into your child's head resonates decades later. So we're gonna make a very special appeal to you as a mother, as a father. Think deeply about what you're telling your child by what you say to them, what you say about them, and what you do about them. I always tell everyone, don't just climb your mountain, crush through it, and we'll see all of it real soon. Thanks again there, Ms. Noah.
Thank you.